Hey guys, how you doing? It's Shane. Welcome back down to the workshop. We eventually made it back here, guys. I'm sorry about the lack of content for you, but we've had major difficulties here in the workshop. Computers have been down, other bits and bobs have been going wrong, but we're back now, hopefully, fingers crossed, and we're going to crack on. So this is the two-handed orc axe build. Now, one of the problems we had was while I was building the axe, the computer went down and wiped all the footage I had recorded for you. So then I had to make another one, which is this one here, on where we got to. So part one is going from blank pieces of foam and a core and getting up to rounding up this into the head piece ready. Okay, so this is part one. Alright, so before we get started, please hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when I go live with new stuff. And if you've got any questions, please hit them in the comments below. You will also find a link to all the materials I use here and the tools, and a link to all my social media stuff, the website, Facebook, Instagram, my Patreon. If you want to help me and the channel grow, Patreon's always there. It's $1. You can pledge $1 or as much as you like, and it'll really help. I appreciate it. But yeah, let's crack on, shall we? Okay, so just like always, we start with the core. Now the core is going to be a 12.7mm carbon fibre rod. And when we do this, what we're doing is taking off the edges. We need a nice round edge so it doesn't damage the foam at either end when it's inserted into the foam blanks. Once you've finished doing both ends of your core, you're going to then scour the actual core itself. Now the reason we're doing this is so the glue has a better chance to bind to the foam and the core. Just give it a gentle rough up with some sandpaper, it doesn't have to be too much. Now our core is finished, we need the rest of the foam. Now we're going to start with the middle piece, which is always the longer when you're doing a hammer or an axe. And we're going to find our centerpiece, mark around it, and then cut it out. Once we've finished cutting the middle out, keep hold of it. You can always use it for detailing later on in the build. When applying the glue, don't forget to do the actual tip end as well. It's very important. And you want a nice even coat all over the core. Once our core has been glued, we then move on to our center piece of foam that we've cut out. Make sure you do a nice even coat just on the inside, that's all we need right now. Don't layer it on because it can come free later on, just a nice simple even coat on both sides. Once the centre piece has been glued up as well as the core, we then move on to our reinforcement. Now here I tend to use a little bit of false leather, but you can use any material you can get hold of that's got a bit of grunt to it. I've even seen people use Kevlar sheets before. But we just need to be able to cover the tip of the core where it meets the end of the foam and on the side, so it's got a little bit of protection from sideways movement. Once that's done, we then move on to putting the sheet of foam together with the core. So now we've got a single strip on one side, and then we'll move on to the other side. Give it a nice, good, firm press. Try and keep it all nice and even. Be careful when you're laying your foam down, or you could just glue it to your workpiece before you're even ready, like I just. Now we're ready to start adding more foam, so we're going to glue up this entire centerpiece, ready to place another piece of foam on top. Now, because this is going to be an axe, the top is reinforced differently, so don't go all the way down to the tip when you're gluing, and move straight on to gluing another piece of foam ready to place on top of the first. Before we apply the two pieces of foam together, don't forget to add your reinforcement to one end. It's important to make sure they are touch dry before they are put together. Press this down around the core wafting around, reapply some glue on the top so this first piece of foam will stick completely to the second. Don't forget to leave plenty of time for it to dry before trying to apply it. We need a good strong seal for this blade. Again, trying to keep it as square as possible will save you much trimming and sanding later on. Try and keep the edges as trim as possible, saves less time later cutting and trimming. Also remember to make sure you can get as much air out and squash it down. Here you can see me using a specialist tool, which is the Mrs.'s rolling pin, and trying to squeeze any air out from in between to get a good strong seal. Once we're confident that we're now ready to together, we start adding out the outer layer. On this side, one more level, another piece of foam side, just to give us a nice bit of girth so we can trim down and have a rounded edge. Make sure you don't forget to put the reinforcement on this side before you apply the next piece of foam. You can see here that the outer layers are not as long as the middle layer. There's no need to, because the head will be adding those layers later, and this will give us a much more secure head fixture than just gluing it onto the side. Once you've allowed for adequate time for it to dry, we're going to start trimming the edges off these corners. We want this to be a round shaft, so to give ourselves a little bit of an easier time of sanding, I'm just taking 45-degree angles off the corners. Trimming these edges is much easier to do with a sharper knife, so make sure you use a sharp blade. Nothing will dull your blade quicker than foam. Try and remember, small amounts to take off at a time. You don't want to make too big a cut or you might overdo it. Just small 45-degree angles taking off the corners. After about 5-10 minutes it should be good enough for us to start sanding. With a low grit sandpaper on your belt sander, just take each corner down and then start rounding it out, nice and smooth. Once you have a set part that you're happy with the diameter, it's easy to just take each corner down and round it to match that of the previous part. Rather than me skipping this section, I thought I'll just speed it up for you. This will give you more chance to see how I do. Again, not everybody does it this way, it's just the way I do it. I find a belt sander makes it a lot easier. So there we are, that's it. This is our rounded shaft ready for our Orc two-handed axe. Now this is a spare because, like I said, I filmed the one I did before and the computer died and I lost all the footage, so I had to make this separate just so you could see the process. But once you're done with the low grain sandpaper on your belt sander, if you want to make sure it's a bit smoother, just put a higher grade on and just take it down that little bit and smooth it down. Just keep turning it gently, gently, gently. Don't take too much off or you will have to start taking these down to make sure they're level with this. Now as you can see, I've took a little bit off, I've got a little bit more to take off there, just to make sure it's level with this part. Otherwise it's going to look odd when you put the actual head on, either a hammer or an axe. Okay, so that's the spare, and this will be included into part 2, how I made this part here. Okay, so this was the original shaft we did, so it's a little bit longer, okay, but it's going to be the Orc two-handed axe. So guys, I hope that's helpful and I hope you enjoy. Sorry it's been a while to get back, but yeah, we're back on top of things now, so hopefully it should be one a week for a while until this pandemic eases down a little bit, because I'm driving more, I'm also in here more. It's just trying to get everything sorted. Okay, but one video a week for now. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed and I hope it helps, and I shall see you in the next one. Cheers guys, bye bye.